Hello and welcome to the Shack News Chattycast. The podcast is introducing a second format to be more inviting to newcomers. I'm one of your hosts, Steve Watts.
I'm your other host, Brian Carr. Today's Chattycast brought to you by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at www.audibletrial.com/chattycast.
That's right. Every week we pick a big topic, post about it on the Shack News Chatty, and then we talk about it in detail with your comments, hence Chattycast. Today's guest, back for a record-breaking second week in a row, Ozzy Mejia.
I'm not used to doing these back-to-backs, you guys.
I know.
I'm a little scared.
Can you handle it? Can you take it?
I think I'll be able to handle it. I especially since I looked at the topic and I was like, yeah, I think I can. I think I'll be able to hang here.
We can do that. So today's topic, as Ozzy kind of alluded to, and as I kind of alluded to, centers kind of on Hearthstone. I'm going to try to resist the pressing urge to just talk about Hearthstone for an hour.
You're going to try and you're going to fail.
Well, you know me too well. Anyway, the point is, we're using the big Hearthstone news from this week to sort of springboard into a related topic of how do these sort of legacy games that run for several years and release DLC that sort of caters to the long-term fans, how does that welcome in new users, and how do you please both audiences? At a certain point, you need to sort of like give up on pleasing both audiences. Hearthstone's come up with sort of an interesting strategy for solving that very problem, so we're going to talk about that in general terms, using Hearthstone as an example. But before we get to all of that, we're going to talk about what we are occupying our times with. Our times, plural for some reason. So Ozzy, what have you been playing lately?
Well, I locked myself over the last week with The Witness, and I gotta say it started to grow on me a lot more like as I played it. But man, once you're into the first couple of hours of that thing, and you're just there's no better way to put this than stuck, because the difficulty on a lot of those puzzles like ramps up like quickly, and really kind of start to get a little bit frustrated. You walk away. You start to you come back. You start to wander around. Then you really start to like just take in the sights of just like how beautiful that island is. Like that's a gorgeously designed like world that Jonathan Blow's made, and it's just one of the best looking games that I've seen in a long time. And then like you start to make the mistake of just like walking around the island, you stumble on a few other puzzles, like, oh, I'll just do a little bit of this, and then you'll hit a wall again, and like, I should probably stop.
Ah, son of a bitch. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you just move on, and then you realize, wait, how far have I gotten like on all of these? Because all of those all that group of puzzles are all tied together, and they all like lead to a laser shooting out towards like the middle of the island. It's part of the central mystery, but you really just need to take like those entire blocks of puzzles at one time, or else you're kind of
they're
like
meant to build on each other and stuff. Yeah.
Exactly, because you lose a lot of that experience if you just like do like I do and just like wander around separately. But I will say this about the puzzles and the difficulty. This is probably one of the best like couples activities or group activities that you can do. It's like one of the best coupley group single player games that I've seen in a long time, because a lot of people will get engaged in the puzzles, and personally for me, my fiance actually helped me with a lot of those puzzles.
Because they're simple. I mean, like the puzzle format is simple. Like the puzzles aren't simple, but like anyone can, in theory, look at one and understand like what it is you're meant to be doing.
And I do like that they don't make you like finish the entire game to actually just to actually get to the ending, because like I'm going back and like I'm going through this like couple of the puzzles I missed, and I've still hit a wall, and I'm just like, okay, like I'm not made of stone. I'll look at one of the solutions online or whatever, and I'll look at like a walkthrough and I'll be like, wait, I don't see the logic behind the solution. Like, wait, how did
yeah. I mean, that's what I've heard about. I've resisted the urge of looking up solutions online, because that's what I've heard about the solutions is like, if you don't get the logic of why the solution works, not only are you not going to be really you'll finish that puzzle because you're like, oh, okay, I do this line this way, but every puzzle after that you're gonna be like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah, you want to move forward, but at the same time, like once you put the solution, it's like, wait, I don't understand like how that relates.
You need to understand why it worked. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why it worked, and that's a little bit more frustrating than actually just not getting the answer, because you want to think that there's like some rules of logic behind it, and I've seen it behind a lot of these. There were some of them that are really clever. Like there was one of them and I think it was one of the temples where you get the solution by like looking behind like one of the panels and like seeing the outline, like, oh, that's a really like clever way to solve that. But then there are others where it just feels like you're just putting in lines. You're just like making a random pattern.
Yeah, this is actually like the only thing that's really on my playlist for this week. That's new at least. I've been dabbling in a lot of different things that I don't have much to say about, but I picked up The Witness because I'm a sucker who who kind of enjoys the zeitgeist and wants to like be a part of it. But I kind of like when I got it, I resolved to not try to bash my head against it and get through it quickly. I'm like, this is a game that might take me a month or 2 months, whatever. I'll play like a half hour a day, and that's fine with me. I think I turned like a corner last night because the first several nights that I had it, I was just kind of wandering around and finding the first of every puzzle and being like, I don't get that one yet. And then I'd like wander over to a different place and be like, yeah, I don't get that one yet either. And then I just like wander, and this was like my entire night, like for several nights. Like I would solve like maybe one or two in an area and then be like, yeah, I don't get it, and just like wander off. Last night was the first time I really like went on a good string of them all in one area and saw how they built on each other. It's the one with I'll keep this as vague as possible. It's the one with the shadows of the branches impacting the puzzles, which is probably like one of the most basic concepts. Like it's probably like, well, that's the easy one, Steve. But I got up to the point that there's an icon on the PSN. The icon for the game on the PSN is like this doorway in this sort of autumn landscape, and it all sort of led to that doorway. So I'm at that doorway, and that's where I like got stuck again. I'm like, okay, well, I feel like I actually made progress in a way that like built on itself for once, and that was really satisfying. So I see where like the appeal of it is when you start getting those kinds of puzzles. But I really only had one of those kinds of experiences so far.
I love that it's one of those games that you can just like carve out entire weekends for and just like, just sit down with it like over an entire night. And then earlier this week, I'm just like looking for news stories and I find Jonathan Blow linking to the speed run. So somebody actually did it in 45 minutes. Like, you son of a bitch.
Yeah, that's insane. Because I mean, like once you know which ones are mission critical and exactly how to do them, it's not like it takes that long.
That's true.
The lines even have like sort of a slow, deliberate speed that they move at. But that's probably like the thing that's going to be the biggest problem for speedrunners. But yeah, I like how it builds on itself. Like I said, I'm going to be taking my time with it, and for all I know, I'm just hopelessly lost again now that I've sort of gotten on that good run. One thing that I do love about it, though, is that the settings and the puzzle types are so distinct that all I needed to say was the one with the shadows, and you're like, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. They're the ones with the shadows, the one with the orange grove, the one with the one in the sand. Like it's easy to find those.
And that's how I see people kind of referring to it. Like I've heard some people say like, oh, the keep, or the like setting names. But I've also seen people discussing it where it's just like, oh, the one that this is like a thing. Like it's very identifiable immediately.
It's distinct enough that you can get it. I will say though that God, I hate the boat. The boat is so
it's so dumb. It's dumb and it's kind of pointless. Like it doesn't actually have. It has fast travel, but it has fast travel in that.
Fast travel in air quotes.
You have to slow travel to a particular location in order to fast travel. And yeah, it's just kind of silly how it doesn't have a map because, I mean, I mentioned how in the first several nights I was like, I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm just kind of wandering around, and I'm starting to get more of a sense of space of where things are in relation to me, But those first few nights, like I saw a puzzle and I was like, I kind of get this. I think I could get it if I put my head to it for a little while. Oh, what's that in the distance? And like I would just wander off, and then I got so hopelessly turned around. I was like, where was that one that I wanted to get back to? I have no idea how to get back to it now.
Yeah, I get that we're trying to be like Myst here, but not everything about Myst worked. Like you don't have to do everything that Myst did.
You can update it a little bit. Yeah, exactly. But that's pretty much all I've been playing lately. Have you been up to anything else?
Just trying to play through Hearthstone and just starting to really look at some of the minions that I'm gonna miss and the other ones that I'm gonna be like, oh God, I'm glad you're going away.
It's like you're saying goodbye.
I will tell you the article you guys wrote. It got me feeling ways about Zombie Chow. I think because like there's some of those cards in there that are like broken garbage, and the game will be better without them. But
You're a
Zombie
little
Chow's not one
robotic,
of them.
Brian, just to let you know.
I'm a little bit
But
robotic. Let me see if I
yeah,
can fix
we
that.
we'll get back to Zombie Chow very soon, I'm sure. But just while Brian adjusts his mic, I did play. Speaking of Hearthstone, I did play. There was this Kotaku article that was sort of like snide about it, but it was like this Kung Fu Panda game is basically Hearthstone, and I was like, that sounds awesome. I'm gonna try that. And so I played a little bit of it last night, and it's pretty good. It's like a pretty good Hearthstone imitator, and I like the way the cards kind of like animate to look like they're doing little like jump kicks and stuff towards each other. It's
Hasn't Kung
cute.
Fu Panda borrowed enough from Blizzard already?
it's really cute. It's really cute. You should try it out. I mean, it's not going to replace Hearthstone in my heart or whatever, but it's
No, right. I mean, there's a lot of those types of games that I need to try out. Like Duelist is another one that I keep hearing really good things about that I actually want to jump into when I get a chance. But
I saw some footage of that and I was like, I have no idea what's going on. Like the thing
I
about
like the
Hearthstone
idea
is it's
of
very easy to understand, like just visually.
yeah, I like
Duelist, I
the
feel like
idea
it's
of
probably a
blending
little more of a
together like
barrier.
the turn-based RPG with the Hearthstone mechanics. Like I kind of like that, so I want to see like if that can work.
The thing about that article, that Kung Fu Panda game you're talking about, I read that article you were referring to. It drove
you
me
linked me to that
crazy.
article. You're the reason I found that game.
I did. It drove me crazy because they're ripping off Hearthstone. So like, yes, because there has never been another collectible card game in a digital format
exactly.
ever before. Like this is like it's like and like then it was even funnier in the comments. People were like, "Oh, but didn't Blizzard rip off Kung Fu Panda?" And I had to hold my tongue from like signing up for Kotaku right then and there and saying, "No, you child. Warcraft has been around well before World of Warcraft. Okay, it was around in like Pandaren showed up in 2002, back when Warcraft was still a real-time strategy game. The good days.
Going full lore nerd on this. This is hilarious.
Somebody screen capped that.
They were an April
that
Fool's
comment
Day
section.
joke before Kung Fu Panda was even a thing.
Somebody screen capped that comment section, and yeah, they put that person in their place.
Yeah,
I mean, it is similar to. I will say it is similar to Hearthstone in some mechanical ways that are very like.
Of course.
Oh, okay. Obviously, they were inspired. But to point out a couple of mechanical differences that are actually kind of interesting. Any minion can become a taunt minion.
Mm-hmm.
You just like drag that minion towards your hero to say, "I want this minion to guard my hero."
Oh, you mean they can block, like in Magic?
Yes, exactly.
Any
so
minion can block.
Yeah. So like that's a pretty notable difference. I will say the minions are, I mean, at least so far. Maybe there's some sort of high-level Kung Fu Panda play that I'm not into yet. But so far it's been like both sides generally have one or two minions on the board at most. I haven't ever had like a field full of them versus a field full of them and picking trades and things like that. It's been very much like I bring a guy out, he does his attack, he probably dies next turn, back and forth. So it's probably a little bit more simplistic.
And I feel like it's worth noting, like Kung Fu Panda's pretty all right.
Yeah, you watched
I enjoyed
that
those
movie?
Movies. I saw the third one over the weekend. It was pretty good. I have no children, by the way. It was just my wife and I. We went to go see Kung Fu Panda. It was great.
It's a grown-ass bearded man.
Yeah.
See Kung Fu Panda in the middle of the day with his wife.
No, first showing in the morning, not middle of the day. First show. It was like 9:30 in the morning.
See, that's weird.
Okay, so wait. Everything else on that is okay, except the fact that it was 3 hours before your acceptable time.
I'm with you on everything, but watching movies in the morning is weird for me. I can't do it.
I will watch movies whenever I want. Thank you.
We're going far afield. Let's get back on the topic, Brian. What have you been playing?
So, I haven't been playing. It's been a real busy kind of time of the year for me. I haven't played a whole lot of like big stuff. I have, however, been doing this challenge that a friend of mine, guy who actually used to write for Joystick, Mike Suzek, does this thing every year called 4 in February. And the idea is you're trying to beat 4 games from your backlog, or just 4 games that you're interested in 1 month. So what I did
is not The Witcher.
Not The Witcher, no. So I have not gotten any further in The Witcher, but I have been spending a lot of time with Shantae, Risky's Revenge, or no, Shantae and the Pirate's Curse. I always get those two confused. That's the one I've been playing, and but I spend most of my time trying to finish up Lara Croft Go. And
Oh
that
man, Lara
game,
Croft Go is so fucking good.
I feel like it was left out unfairly from Game of the Year talk last year. I maintain that if we're talking like best games last year, it's like some combination of that, Rise of the Tomb Raider, and Mario Maker. But
See, here's my experience with Lara Croft Go. I finished it pretty quickly. There was about a 2 week period that my child was waking up in the middle of the night a lot, and and I was tasked with putting her back to sleep. So during that time, I discovered two things. One, Hearthstone competitive gets like much easier around like 4 or 5 in the morning because if you're awake because you have a screaming baby and the other person isn't, apparently you're at a competitive advantage.
Oh,
So
geez.
I got some good progress in that. But besides that, I just had a lot of time to finish Lara Croft Go because even I got a little tired of playing Hearthstone like constantly at that time. So that was
You can
mainly the
only see
contributor
Dr.
to me
Boom so much,
finishing.
Steve.
That was mainly the contributor to me finishing Lara Croft Go quickly.
so what you're saying is that if I want more time to play video games, I need to have a
You need
kid.
to have a baby. It's
I
the
need to have a
that's
baby.
that's what everybody says. Yeah, you you have a
And
baby,
then I
and
can
then
go
you
see
have
Kung
so
Fu
much
Panda
time.
anytime I want. Steve.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the new one yet, so
If
I'm.
you like the other ones, you'll like this one. It's a nice kind of like I think it's a good place to leave the franchise. They'll make more, I'm sure, but it wraps the story up pretty well.
It looked like they were like setting up to just like kind of just end it right there, so I'm okay with that.
Everything's in a neat little box now, I think, in terms of themes and all that. So, but
Everything's
it
got to
was
be a trilogy now.
yeah. But this time, like I don't know. Again, this is not Kung Fu Panda Cast. It should be, but it's not. So I won't spend much more time talking about it.
It's
But yeah,
really too bad
that's
that it's really too bad that Hearthstone did nothing with the Pandarans because
yeah.
we
They
could always
actually
talk
did.
about pandas.
You're right. There's not nearly enough Pandaren. Like, why can't I have a Pandaren deck? Like,
That might be the expansion in the
I
spring.
hope so.
Who
I will
knows?
get right back into it if that's the case. I love the Pandarans.
You'll get right back into it until you linger in the high ranks, and you're like, ah, fuck this.
I get to about rank 17, and then I'm like, okay, I'm done. Like,
Yeah.
I can't do this anymore. When
We've
I start
danced this
losing,
dance before, Brian. I've tried to get you into it multiple times.
I no. See, the thing is, I am into it. I do play it. Like, I've got all the expansions. I've played everything. I
Mhm.
just am not into it the way you're into it, and I don't think I
Yeah,
ever
well, I mean,
can
who
be.
is? That's not
Yeah.
fair. But it sounds like we're sort of
Well,
launching
Ozzy
into
might
this
be.
topic, but I
Yeah.
want to give you a chance to talk about anything else you're playing first. So,
Not really. It's just been a lot of. I've been looking forward to a lot of things, but basically, my month is going to try to be. I'm going to try to finish up those things. Lara Croft Go, Shantae, Freedom Planet. I'm basically picking stuff I've already started and can probably finish pretty quickly. And then
mhm.
I actually. So here's the crazy thing. I'm going to try to finish Darkwing Duck on the NES. It was
What?
one of
Why?
it was like
Oh,
it was like one of the first games, if not the first game I ever actually like saved up money for, and I've never finished it because it's really, really hard.
Okay.
So I'm going to try to do that, and I might try to stream it too. So if I do, I will let the Shack News chatty community know. Um,
Hooray! I'm sure
ugh,
everyone will love that. Does it
yeah,
that
have like an
no,
8-bit like
nobody's
chip
gonna
tune
watch that.
Dark Duck?
that's interesting though because that was the other game that like came up aside from Rescue Rangers as like what can Capcom remaster after DuckTales,
Darkwing
and
Yeah.
Duck.
Darkwing Duck came up frequently.
Well,
Uh,
there's always a push to bring back Darkwing Duck. There's that rumor flying around. I think ultimately got debunked, but that Disney was trying to do something. And I
uh,
know
The
John.
my
rumor of
heart.
TV series was debunked. There is a new comic series coming this
Yes.
year,
Yep.
and this is the 25th anniversary of
Yeah.
Darkwing
If they're
Duck.
making, I mean, if they were making Darkwing Duck, which was basically they're like, hey, what if this weird duck world we have had a Batman? You know,
Hmm.
like if they're doing that and they also have access to the Marvel universe, I want to see them somehow combine those
Right.
ideas.
Though, if I can put on my nerd glasses for a second, arguably Darkwing Duck has as much to draws as much from like the Shadow and the Sandman and the Phantom and stuff like that as he does Batman. But
Sure, but I think the Batman's '90s popularity
yeah, like it
fueled
was
that.
definitely fueled that, but I think they went even further back into like the pulp roots for Darkwing Duck.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I will say though, John Vignacchi, the guy who's in charge of Disney Infinity or like the PR guy for it, or I'm not really sure what his position is. he has said that he is a Darkwing Duck fan and apparently has been trying to get a figure made for a long time.
Oh God.
So I would like, as someone who loves Disney
Wasn't
Infinity
that an
and
option on
Darkwing
the
Duck,
poll and then
I
it
think
lost?
so. And then like a
It
bunch
was
of
an option
kids
on the
voted
poll.
for something else. This isn't about what the kids want. This is about what I, a
These
30-year-old
action figures
weirdo,
for
want.
the
Darkwing
child's
Duck
game.
narrowly lost out to Maple Pines from Gravity
right.
Falls,
Yeah.
and I'm actually okay with that because I love Gravity Falls so much.
It's a good show from what I've seen of it, but I just love
It's
Darkwing
ending in
Duck
2
so
weeks,
much.
and I'm so
Yeah.
sad about
It's
that.
being
but
voiced by,
makes
it's a character voiced by, what's her name?
Kristen
Kristen
Shaw
Shaw.
is amazing.
Kristen
Yeah.
Shaw, yeah. I
She's
almost said
incredible.
Kristen Wiig, and I'm like, that's not right. But yeah, like it's a character being voiced by Kristen Shaw. Like that, there's nothing wrong with that.
No, I have no problem with that. I was bugged that like because they had the design summit with all the people who are like really good at making the toy boxes, and they picked Peter Pan as the figure they wanted. Peter Pan, really?
I don't know. I don't get it. There's
I will say
there's
that
some,
I was in a big Twitter conversation with like the Darkwing Duck comic creators and all that, and John Vignacchi was happy to issue a couple of retweets and likes for that. So
Yeah.
he's a big Darkwing Duck guy.
next
Yeah.
year when they come out with all the furries for Zootopia, that's when they can bring out Darkwing Duck. And,
Oh no, that's next
and-
month, not next year. They're doing them when the
But that
movie
looks good
launches.
too, by the way.
Yeah, it
that
actually
looks
looks
fun.
So I was
It looks
surprised
funny.
since we've already opened up the Pandora's box of this being the cartoon cast. They showed the new trailer for Zootopia with Kung Fu Panda, and I was kind of surprised. They're going into some pretty deep territory with the themes of that, and I think it's going to get lost a lot in the conversation about like it sounds like it's a lot about like inequality. And like like different kind of like
Weird.
social expectations and structures and that sort of thing. I'm kind of surprised by what they're doing.
some animals sit at the back of the bus and such. It's
Kind of. I mean, like
very socially relevant.
so they call the rabbit, the character, their token bunny on the force, like the police force, and I'm like, whoa, I was not expecting that.
They have tokenism. Yeah. That's
Yeah,
fun.
like this is some pretty heavy stuff for a kids cartoon, but
I was going to say when they bring out Zootopia figures, they could bring out my Foxy Robin Hood, but I guess not.
no, he's like the other one that people really really want, but
Oh, it's so good.
Darkwing Duck
all right.
first. I'm sure somebody's gonna mod the fox from Zootopia to look like Robin Hood. It's gonna happen.
It's the same design.
Yeah, it is.
It's the same character. They just took off his hat. Anyway, let's move on to our big topic, which, as I mentioned, is Hearthstone inspired. But every developer hopes to make a game that lasts through the years. The rare game that does catch on long term has to contend with its own set of design problems, though. As the studio develops more bells and whistles for the long-term fans who have kept it running, they risk making it increasingly impenetrable to new players. Eventually, a long-lasting game needs to figure out how to welcome both audiences. This week, inspired by the announcement of Hearthstone's new split format structure, we're talking about how legacy games keep from becoming too insular. How does a game properly balance the wishes of its long-term fans with the need to attract new players? Are the two design goals too distinct to expect one solution that will please everyone? And is splitting the difference, the way Hearthstone frankly is doing, the best way to keep a game relevant? Before we sort of dive into the bigger echoes of this as it relates to just game design in general, we should probably explain what Hearthstone is doing. It's doing basically what a lot of CCGs have done in the past. Magic has done this for years. There's even been speculation about Hearthstone doing this at some point for a while. Basically, it's making a limited format, which is the basic decks plus the most recent decks, or expansions rather. So there's a smaller pool of cards for the official tournament play, and that smaller pool is going to be constantly cycling out. There will be the older things cycling away while new things cycle in. And so yeah, it's limited play. It's sort of meant to make it a little less intimidating for new players who aren't like, oh my god, I have to buy like 6 adventures to be competitive with these people who've been playing forever. But they are splitting it in twain, so to speak, by having this format that they're calling Wild, which is basically just the thing that is currently the current format, where everything is fair game. And you can continue to do the ranking up in both formats. You could rank up in Legend in both formats if you really wanted to. If you have
Arena still has all the cards.
I guess if you
right?
have infinite time, you could still rank up to Legend in both. And yes, Arena has all of the cards, so Arena is basically like Wild format. So this standard format that they're calling it, and every year it's going to be called something new. This year is called the Year of the Kraken. But standard format is just going to be the basic cards plus the current and previous calendar year. So for this year, that counts 4 expansions, and then, of course, whatever else they bring out throughout the rest of the year.
So what's not part of it?
What's not part of it?
Is it just Naxxramas and Goblins
It's
versus
Naxxramas and Goblins versus Gnomes. I think next year they're going to be cycling out Black Rock Mountain and what else would it be?
Tournament.
Yeah, Black Rock Mountain and Grand Tournament would be what
And the
gets
League of
cycled out next year.
Explorers. Man, a lot of people are going to cry.
Oh my God! Wait, yeah, League of
goes
Explorers
away.
was very late last year, so yeah, I guess League gets knocked out too. So that's the basic gist of what they're doing, and they're by having a split format, people who really want to play with every card can continue to do so, but obviously a little more inviting for newcomers, and also since they're making that the official tournament format, the really professional, high-level deck builders are going to have to focus their efforts there to make competitive decks for their tournament play.
Yeah, that's going to be fun to watch, by the way.
Yeah, I've already heard some of the sort of high-level players talking about like, okay, well this isn't going to be a thing anymore, like mid-range paladin is just dead, apparently. So far, there's been pretty positive feedback. Since we're sort of springboarding off of general game design talk, I can just talk about the reaction to this. The reaction to this has actually been pretty positive. Kind of surprisingly positive for such a huge.
I'm very surprised.
I have kind of a theory of why that is. It was paired with an announcement, not even an announcement. It was almost like a footnote. It was paired with a note that like this big change is going to be coming alongside a new expansion. That they haven't detailed it. They haven't said anything about it. They've just said the spring 2016 expansion. And I think a lot of people are just kind of pinning their hopes on Blizzard knowing what they're doing. So they're like, okay, we're losing all of these tools, like especially control tools. A lot of the base game of Hearthstone without any expansions is very aggro focused. It's very fast paced. And since then, a lot of their expansions have been slowing things down and making it more control focused and giving more control tools. So this is going to knock out a bunch of control tools all at once. And a lot of people, I think, are just counting on whatever this new expansion is. It's like, oh, they're not going to get rid of all of our control tools without giving us some new ones. So it's like the hope of the unknown is making people, pretty positive and like, oh, I'm sure they're going to make up for it, kind of thing.
So I'm kind of amazed that there was such a positive feedback because this is, like you alluded to earlier, this is a pretty common model for most collectible games like this.
Mm-hmm.
Like Magic, anything like that is going to have to go through like those seasons where they cycle cards in and out of the main set. And of course, they do have the legendary or, unlimited format. It's been a while, so I can't remember exactly what they call it, but the thing here is that there is an expectation that I've noticed on the part of a lot of players, just in video games in general, is that if I buy something, I should be able to use it forever, right?
Yeah.
And I am very surprised that we don't see more of a pushback on this, saying that, well, I can't use my cards in the tournament scene anymore. Why did I bother giving you this money, right? So I'm very pleased, I think, in that. And I think part of it also might be because, let's face it, Hearthstone is kind of broken.
They constantly try to rebalance and tweak, and all the new expansions are sort of their opportunity to do that. Mm-hmm. And they nerf cards every once in a while, but most of the time they just like they're just like, well, this thing's underpowered. Let's release a crazy powerful card for it. Mm-hmm. And then it sort of swings the other direction.
I'm just sad that I only got to start my Murloc Paladin deck just recently. And
but it's still viable, though.
Is it
the
really?
Murloc Paladin hasn't really been affected.
Yeah, Murloc is okay.
Awesome.
For now, until next year.
I'm good. I'm happy.
But the other thing about this is apparently there was an interview. I haven't actually read it myself, but I heard people chattering about it. Apparently Ben Brode from Team 5, who's sort of their public face most of the time, him and Eric Dodds, basically said a handful, maybe the estimate I heard was somewhere between 2 and 20 of the basic cards are going to get readjusted because with this format change, since they know from now on they're going to be cycling things in and out, they need to make sure that the base set is a good foundation. And something that Brode apparently observed is once we get rid of all these things, a lot of classes are taking a hit. In one way or another, but the one class that isn't really taking a hit is Druid, because most of its stock standard powerful cards are in that original set. So the speculation from those two comments that Broad made is that Druid is going to get hit especially hard with readjustments to make it more even keel with where the rest of them are with the basics.
Yeah, Forces of Nature and Savage Roar will still end your game in like 2
Yes,
seconds.
I'm sure at least one of those two combo cards is going to get readjusted. The crazy thing about this change, from my perspective, like as somebody who's been playing from the beginning and for all I know will continue to play well into the future unless something weird happens.
Maybe that Kung Fu Panda game will really get your attention.
Yeah, it really hooks me.
Pull you away from it.
But like I'm fine with just like, oh, okay, well I can still play in Wild. Like I think that's part of why people don't mind the whole like you said like people expect to be able to play forever. Like, well, they still can. It's just the format that's not the official tournament format. So I'm like, yeah, I might still play Wild because I've been playing for long enough that I want to get matched up with other people who've been playing for a long time. But at the same time, what's so weird is that they're removing the ability to even buy those things. Like you can't even buy Nax Remus after this. So you can
that seems short-sighted.
If you want to, you can craft them, but you cannot buy Nax Remus the Adventure, which is...
Yeah, I don't like that. That seems really short-sighted.
I like the Adventure.
Yeah, because you're basically missing out on these really interesting, well-designed interpretations of the game, right? Like you're missing out on this like actual stuff.
Yeah, those adventures have gotten better and better, and the League of Explorers was just such a fun adventure that eventually people are not going to be able to buy it.
Yeah, there's so much personality in those adventures. Like there's so much.
Part of that might just be the considerations of it being a digital game instead of an actual CCG. It's a digital game. If you keep putting new adventures into it, you have to have those assets available at all times. You know.
Sure.
Downloads it, and the size might just like
it's already a pretty big file.
Like, I mean, like it might just be a size consideration more than a sales thing, but it's just kind of a weird thing. That also means you can disenchant cards. So if you had a bunch of Nax Remus cards, you're like, oh, I never used this Nax Remus card.
Oh, okay, see, that's good. Okay, sure.
And I think they're offering a bonus with that, aren't they? Like bonus dust for
I didn't read that, but that's entirely fine. I mean, that would make sense because you did pay. If you have Nax Remus, you either paid a buttload of gold or $20. So I think
somebody in the giant chatty thread noted
dust
that
or something like that.
You're getting some extra dust for it. Yeah.
So it would make sense if they offered a little bonus.
Okay, so that doesn't bother me so much. Now here's the question though: if I own those, can I go back and play them?
I don't know.
That's a
good question. That might be in the fact that I didn't read all the way through.
Sure.
But yeah, that's a good question. If I talk to Blizzard,
maybe
I'll bring that up.
You ask them for me. You tell them I asked.
Here's one from Brian. They're like, who?
For me specifically, they'll know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, I want my card back, Steve. I still haven't beaten it on heroic.
Oh man, yeah, you need to hurry it up. But yeah, like that's sort of a strange move. I think I kind of understand it, and it could be coming from a few different places. But to broaden this out, we've sort of geeked out over Hearthstone a little bit, but to broaden this out, what are some other games that have lasted a very long time that have had to deal with this same problem?
Oh, Blizzard's done this before. Mm-hmm. They've done it with World of Warcraft.
Yes, that's true. I mean,
Diablo.
They did.
My goodness.
What was the expansion that they're just like, we're just going to destroy the world?
Oh.
That's like every other World of Warcraft expansion.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But there was one specifically that was...
That's the one. Cataclysm.
Yeah. I was about to say there was one specifically that was tied to Deathwing, and that's how I know who Deathwing is. At any rate, yeah. And Diablo, they've constantly been updating, obviously. I was thinking Team Fortress 2.
Sure.
Oh,
as a game that has lasted like pretty much forever. Like I don't know if there was a time that there wasn't Team Fortress 2 anymore.
Yeah, but a lot of that original base is gone. Like
since time immemorial. Yeah, like if you tried to like. I remember playing it back when it first came out, and I had like maybe 2 maps that were my favorite. I feel like if I just logged on now, like I wouldn't even recognize what's happening.
So and they give you that temptation to come back because the Halloween events are always a lot of fun.
Actually, wait, that's not theoretical. I did that when I had a PC to review. I was like, oh, I'll start up some Team Fortress 2. I logged into a game and I literally didn't understand what was going on. Like I didn't know what my goal was.
Well, you also played on the
and then other people running past me. I'm like, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing.
You also played on the 360 though, and that was like notorious
Yeah,
for
I
not
did.
getting updated. So I
It
wonder
was
like
pretty awful. Yeah,
if the servers are still up
I
for
was a
that.
big fish in a small pond on 360 though.
Hmm.
Let me tell you.
Team Fortress 2 is what made me start gaming on a PC back in the day. I was not a classic PC gamer. I didn't start gaming on PC until Team Fortress 2, and I'm just like, you know what? This 360 version is never getting updated. I want to play what everybody else is playing, so I jumped on
Yeah,
PC,
yeah,
and I
and it
was able to
never will
run it
be.
on a toaster.
I remember for a while there they were promising updates. They were like, no, no, we're going to support it. And it's like, no, you're not. Shut up, guys. At any rate, yeah. So Team Fortress has sort of solved the problem by just kind of constantly updating and going free to play. And but is that inviting to new players? You think, or
Uh,
is that catering to the long term base? Because this is the dichotomy that I'm sort of bringing up with this topic is like, do you just lean into the hardcore base and slowly dwindle
So
users, or do you lean into getting new users and piss off the old timers?
I think the discussion of any of this has to start with the idea of the metagame, right?
Yes.
Like trying to come up with those strategies, those combinations, and that sort of thing that are meant to be competitive because everybody else is doing them. And that to me, it feels like the established core base of players is going to always, always, always want the metagame to be what they're used to, right?
Hmm.
So, like, if you take something out of Hearthstone, or you take something out of Team Fortress, or Diablo, or something that gave them a competitive advantage, and they no longer have it, well, that completely upends the metagame. That upends their strategy they're using to actually play the game. So they're like, well, I'll never play this again because they can't imagine playing it without that, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it also means but it's also necessary because if you think about it as a new player, if you're coming into a new game and you're trying to really adjust and compete, you're limited in what you can actually do. You can't really enjoy the full scope of the game because there are certain characters, certain things out there that this is what you have to do, or you're just going to lose. That's it. You're
Hmm.
going to lose up and down. Like so, for example, if I can talk about the game that I am obsessed with on mobile phone, Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, which I'm still very surprised you haven't started playing, Steve.
I downloaded it. I'm going to try it.
So there are certain characters that in the competitive meta, the squad arena battles, you almost have to have them. If you don't have them, you're not going to get to the top ranks. So like First Order TIE Pilot, okay? You see like maybe one or two of those in the movie. You see him all the time in competitive play, right? Because he has this ability where if he shoots, he can hit again for higher critical chance. And so even if he's like under-leveled or underpowered compared to the guy he's shooting, he can still take dudes out in one shot because the crit stuff is broken with him. Okay?
Hmm.
So he's everywhere. And you also have
He's the
characters.
Dr. Boom of that game, is what you're saying.
Kind of is, yeah. Like he shows up a lot. Darth Sidious shows up a lot. Count Dooku has like a ridiculous
Name?
counterattack. What's
Okay.
that? What?
You said Count Dooku has a ridiculous, and I said name.
That too. But I just feel silly saying it. But he has a truly preposterous like counterattack rate. Like you can literally give him an ability. Like if he gets hit, he'll just counterattack. He might counterattack 2-3 times. Doesn't matter. You will get like 4 or 5 hits in on a guy. Like for hitting him once. If you level him up and and a lot of people do for that reason. So. Like
Yeah.
you have to have these certain characters, or you can't compete. Captain Phasma is another one. And to me, like if you're playing a game like that, like I'm playing, if you want to play Star Wars because you like Star Wars, you like Luke, and you like whatever characters, and you want to use those characters, well, you're gonna get killed constantly, like for enjoying something, like not playing it like a shark. So
Hmm.
like. And this is something that happens in any competitive game. So when we're talking about the question of design, like should we keep new players happy or should we just keep the old ones happy? I think the only way you ever grow and get those new players to become old players is to just change things.
Yeah.
It's necessary.
And I mean
It's a survival thing.
the thing about Hearthstone is it's I don't want to say stagnated because that sounds a little harsher than I'm actually going for here. But
Mhm.
there are certain deck types that when a new expansion comes out, people don't reinvent decks usually. Like people
Mhm.
might invent one or two new decks, but mostly when a new expansion comes out, they refine the existing decks. They're like, okay, Control Priest is already a thing. These new cards came out which fit into this archetype. We're going to refine it and include these things now. The interesting thing that this change up is going to do is basically throw out a lot of old decks so people have kind of force people to invent new ones, and then it's just going to redo that every year, like every January or whatever the reset date is. It's going to just force people to rethink things while also introducing new things into the meta with the expansions. So instead of it just being okay, we release new expansion, it refines decks and then it gets old a little faster. There's going to be sort of a constant mix-up, which I think is exactly what they're trying for.
And you really have to do that, like especially because I'm thinking too of like fighting games, right? That is a game where you literally that's a genre where you literally there are certain characters that are going to be preferred or more powerful than others. Like I'm thinking back to when Street Fighter 4 came out, everybody you played was Ken. Like you went online, it was just Kens everywhere because Ken had the easiest moves to pull off. He had like higher priority on some of those moves, and so like once you've learned that, like you literally have to play as Ken to beat Ken. Or Aquaman.
Wait a minute. I've been tricked. You just
turned
this episode into the Street Fighter cast.
I know. I'm preparing because as we've talked about behind the scenes, there's going to be a full Street Fighter episode, whether you like it or not. So
you slid that in there. You fooled me. Yeah, I mean
I almost got Injustice in there too, but then you cut me off. But
that's where it's not just for the new players. It's also to make the game more interesting for the old players. You know.
Yeah.
Like in this case specifically, and I think in general, when you make a move like this, the old players like us, like we enjoy playing, but at the same time, it's like, well, I kind of get it. You know, like it's not a new deck building puzzle anymore. It's I know what I'm doing. So it simultaneously kind of accomplishes both goals ideally. At the same time. I think the fear, which is a reasonable fear, is that we're going to revert to the aggressive aggro style. Because just as a random example, like I said, they've been slowing things down a lot with each expansion. They slowed things down to an extremely heavy degree with League of Explorers and Reno Jackson. And once Reno Jackson cycles out, they're going to need something else that's a different solution, but equally powerful.
Reno becomes like the big anti-aggro solution at this point. Because Sludge Belcher's gone.
Yeah, exactly. Sludge Belcher isn't even a thing anymore. But like once they get rid of Reno, and Zombie Chow, which is also an anti-aggro thing. A lot of anti-aggro things are getting cycled out. Once they get rid of Reno, as my sort of hypothetical example, they need to introduce something that's equally powerful at combating control decks, but a different solution to that same design problem. So that makes it interesting that we're going to see a lot of new interesting designs from Blizzard, I think. It also means that Wild is going to be very interesting, that you'll have like these multiple solutions, and it'll be interesting to see how people stack them together.
Yeah, it's just going to be international waters.
At the same time, we have to put a lot of trust in Blizzard that they're not just going to revert the game to an earlier state that isn't as fun. Yeah, like that's sort of the fears that suddenly it's like, oh, aggro rules again. Great. Okay. I thought we slowly got away from this crap.
I kind of feel like aggro never really stopped ruling.
Yeah. I mean, it's still definitely around, and if you don't draw Reno, I've been in the matches where I'm just like, all right, well, I either draw Reno or I lose,
I think
and then I don't.
That I might miss the most is Echo of Medivh, because I was able to play Ice Block, and then whenever somebody got lethal on me, I would just play Reno and then play Echo, so I'd have another Reno to play later.
Just constant Renos, yeah. Or you can use the Panda to just cycle them back. Anyway, yeah, like that's sort of the faith that we're putting in Blizzard, and I want to put a lot of faith in Blizzard. I like the game. I like what they've done with it, so I have some faith in them. At the same time, there have been some cards that they released that have gotten way out of control, and from their comments, it's been obvious that they did not see it coming at all. Yeah. And so,
but historically, like we said earlier, like if there's any company that can do this, it's Blizzard. Like I wouldn't trust any other company to do something like this.
I think they've ramped up production enough that they're committing probably to 2 or 3 expansions per year. And by expansions, I mean expansions and adventures under the same umbrella. But like 2 or 3 per year, plus changing up the meta every year by cycling some things out. It's going to keep things interesting at the very least. There's going to be a lot more shifting.
Maybe you guys have an answer for this. Like, so if we are committed to this idea of revamping a game, like changing things up, combating the meta, how often does this stuff need to come out? Because I'm thinking of a lot of games where it's like, okay, we're introduce new maps, new whatever, but we're going to do it like 8 months after the game comes out.
Yeah.
And by then, I'm usually done with the game. I have no interest in going back. So do we just like start this like from the beginning and just keep it going, or?
Well, that's what's interesting about this move for me. I'll give Ozzy. Sorry, I feel like I'm just talking over, but that's what makes this sort of interesting to me is that the pace of their expansion so far has been like just barely good enough. You know, like there will be like a solid like month right before an expansion hits that it's like, okay, like things have kind of settled. Everyone kind of knows. You don't see that much variation in decks anymore. There might be like a really good, well-known deck builder might be like, I'm trying out this new thing, and their new thing is like swapping one card, you know, and so it gets kind of stayed after a while.
They're at
usually
a good pace. I think
the pace of
like
expansion
maybe,
has like just barely kept ahead of that.
but they're maybe
I think,
going like maybe once every 6 months or something for like
yeah,
expansions.
yeah.
That's a really good pace for it.
It's definitely a good pace as far as like production and knowing what goes into producing a game. As far as combating the meta getting stale, it's barely been able to keep pace with it. And I think that's what I'm driving at here is that the introduction of this new thing where it mixes up the meta in such a huge way and also introduces those things will hopefully keep that from happening as quickly as it kind of has recently.
I do like that this is basically like their catch-all for a lot of nerfs. And I remember a while back, like I kind of caught some flack for this story I wrote about all these Hearthstone cards that I feel like kind of need to be adjusted a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like almost all of those cards have been dealt with this change. And
yeah, I mean most
maybe
of
some
them
like unintentionally, but
the sort of classic thing is like if a new player is starting Hearthstone and they're like, hey, how do I get competitive? It's like, well, buy Naxxramas first of all, because that thing was packed with really powerful cards, and now it's just
that's what we told Andrew, isn't it?
It's not going to exist anymore. It's where what is?
We basically told Andrew to start with Naxxramas.
Yeah. Start with Naxxramas and dust things that aren't in the one or two decks that you want to build. That's the advice I've always given to new players. So that's not going to be the advice anymore.
Yeah, like the easiest way to go is to just get the expansion. But now I guess I feel like if you get any spare gold, just craft basic cards. Craft as many basic decks as you can, and whatever extra dust you have, just get the legendary of the moment. Yeah.
And to put a slightly more sinister bent on it, it also means that long-term players like are going to need to invest in the newer packs to be able to be competitive more often. I'm sure that's part of the consideration financially, because if your old cards are just not that useful anymore, you want to get the new stuff. So
I'm curious, and this really is sort of semi-related, with the Warcraft movie coming out, what do you suppose the likelihood of that next expansion being heavily Warcraft 1 flavored is going to be?
Oh, that's interesting. I hadn't even thought of that. Yeah, that could be cool. So far they've been getting more and more out there with their expansions and stuff. Like they started out very much like, okay, we're just retelling a Warcraft story, but Hearthstoning it. And then they've sort of like slowly drifted towards like this is an alternate take on this on this Warcraft story, or this is the League of Explorers is like this is just kind of like a weird side thing that you never heard about.
And I love that, but like
this one guy that you know.
It just seems to me like if you're making a Warcraft game, and you might want to capitalize on any interest you get from the Warcraft movie, and like I wouldn't be surprised we do see a lot of the characters in that movie show up in some capacity.
At some point in that movie, they need to be playing Hearthstone. That's all
my hope for that movie is still
like with physical cards.
That'd be great, but my hope is still that like there's a scene where they're like a bunch of like orcs on ships or something, and somebody's like, "Stop rocking the boat."
Job's done. So I think we can move on. First, Brian, do you wanna sing Boyz II Men's "It's So Hard to Say Goodbye to Yesterday" while lamenting Zombie Chow?
Never mind.
So we haven't given a lot of these cards proper goodbyes, and I know.
So that's what that feature was for. Like,
you and I tag teamed that feature yesterday about which cards we're going to miss the most, and
we even still had to leave some off because we came up with sort of the top 10.
We didn't put MechWarper on.
And it was like, holy shit, we didn't put this on or this on,
But then the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, MechWarper doesn't matter because there's no mechs.
Because there's no mech doesn't even matter.
And that's the other issue that I'm having with this is the unintended consequences that it has for certain other cards. Like Gorilla Bot that just released with League of Explorers, that's useless now. Like there's no point in having that in your deck anymore.
like if an expansion is very focused on a tribal synergy, which they haven't, to be fair, they haven't done as much of lately. They did it with mechs and then dragons, and now that was pretty much it. But any expansion that's reliant on tribal synergy, like as soon as that cycles out, it's like, well, that tribe's screwed now. You know, like it just kind of takes the legs out from it. But Avenge,
that's what
oh my
happened
God!
with Magic. I mean, like this is not a new problem. Like this,
Yep.
that's what's kind of interesting is that we're seeing these problems all over again, just in a different context.
Well, the way that I saw it phrased that was kind of interesting was Kyle Orr from Ars Technica, I think. He basically said he basically called it like the rise of digital scarcity, like.
Mm-hmm.
Like the fact that they're taking them out of print means that they're going to be scarce in a way, which is sort of an interesting artificial thing that video games are doing, especially when they're imitating a real market like this one,
And the idea of giving more dust for those cards, I mean, that just plays right into it.
Getting that dust. Yeah.
What you guys should like. I don't want to tell you guys your business, but you guys should have done like an in memoriam reel for those cards.
And that's a good idea.
Like, applause
we'll get Andrew on that. That's a good idea.
Yeah, just like a lot of applause for some, and like
nobody watching this show steal that idea. That's funny. Like the black and white like close-ups, like slowly panning over.
But you have to have the applause too. Like
we do. That's a good. I love that idea. We need to make that happen. Anyway.
Okay, I get full credit on it.
Let's move on. We'll do some very quick newsy bits, and then we have a very special Beat the Oz / Beat the Doc.
Yeah. Well, we also have a sponsor.
Yes.
Audible. They are offering you, the listeners of the Shack News Chattycast, a free audiobook download and a free 30-day trial to check out their service. Tons of great books to choose from. Every week we're going to highlight one that we've personally enjoyed. We think you might too. Since this week we are talking about the metagame and changing up the rules and making things more accessible and balanced and all that sort of thing, I thought... What's that?
I said this is an inspired choice. You told me about it earlier.
I thought so too. This week you can check out Moneyball, The Art of Winning an Unfair Game, written and read by Michael Lewis. You may have heard of the movie. Forget the movie. The book is something special. It breaks down how Billy Beane and the Oakland A's made a perennially competitive team without a competitive salary simply by digging in deeper into the data and statistics to upend the metagame. Even if you're not a sports fan, even if you're not angry that baseball season's taking this long to get here like me, it is still a great book. If you love anything to do with math, statistics, anything like that, check it out. Check out any of over 150,000 other titles with your free audiobook download thanks to Shack News. Visit audibletrial.com/chattycast. That's audibletrial.com/chattycast.
Thank you, Brian. And chances are you either like baseball or math or both. So
I mean, like this.
It's a wide range.
Let's possible there's somebody who doesn't like either, but there's something to enjoy in that book. It's a good book.
Let's hit some quick newsy bits. Nintendo's first mobile app is coming in March. You guys, it's almost here. It's also super weird sounding. It's Mitomo, something like that. It sounds kind of like a Me chat room.
It's PictoChat basically for your phone.
Yeah. I don't know how big that's going to be.
Oh, it's going to be huge.
Maybe
I don't think anybody's going to like it, but you're going to see a ton of like ironic usage of it.
Yeah. Just like PictoChat.
Yeah.
So this is Nintendo's first foray into mobile. Do you think they learned lessons from this? Do they take a look at the success or lack of success of this and do something with it, or they already have plans for 4 apps altogether by next March?
It's a nice trial run. Nothing else.
So I think they already are, because they said the next app is going to focus on one of their best-known characters. They didn't say who that was, but I hope you guys like Metroid apps. But
hope you guys like Metroid apps and not games.
Nope, you're not gonna like. It's just like an alarm clock app with Samus.
Nintendo's strategy is going to be like to continuously release apps.
Did Other M just kill that franchise?
That people have been demanding for years, but not give us a sequel to the game.
Yeah,
like, hey, do you like F-Zero? Well, here's this app.
I can't speak for F-Zero, but I'm really starting to feel like Metroid Other M just completely killed that franchise.
Well, no, Federation Force is coming out, and I think it looks pretty good. It's not the Metroid anybody wants, but it looks good. And Next Level Games, man, they have a great track record, so I don't know.
They
It
could
might be
have
good.
launched that as a new
I don't
IP.
know.
Don't slap the Metroid name on it.
I'm just excited for a new Next Level Games thing. I could care less if it's
Yeah.
Metroid or not.
It's space soccer. It's a little weird. Anyway, I mean it's space soccer that you shoot the ball, which makes it weirder, I suppose. All right, let's move on. There was a weird story this week, and I'll just make this the last one, just because it's funny and weird. There was a weird he said story this week where the one member of the Ant Simulator, I guess, management development team, put up a video alleging that his other team members blew the money on liquor, cars, and strippers. The other business partners came back. Game Informer was very practiced good journalism skills and was very deliberate about not naming names of who these people were until they got them on record and giving quotes. They said, that's all bullshit. I think they even used the word bullshit. And said, like, look, of course we spent some of the company money in a bar, but like no more than companies just do when they go to a bar for like a meeting or whatever. So it's getting a lot more attention than I think the Kickstarter ever would have gotten without this big controversy. But it was such a brash thing to say about your former coworkers. And this all came in the midst of him saying, well, it's canceled now because these guys blew all our money.
I was going to say, I'm like, does this fall under the rule of any publicity is good publicity?
Well, I'll tell you, I had never actually heard of Ant Simulator as a thing until this story came out. So, yes?
Yeah, so now we've heard of it, but we'll never play it because it's canceled.
Like, is this also the de facto game announcement, too? Because...
This game you've never heard of is canceled because of booze. Yeah, I don't know.
It'll be 2 seconds to come up with the Fender quote upon hearing that story of like blackjack and hookers.
Yeah, well, that's the funny thing. I think I could be wrong. I could click on the actual link to our follow-up story and make sure. But I feel like I read the response to them said like we didn't spend any money on hookers, and I feel like he didn't say hookers. He said strippers. And so it's like, whoa, you're denying.
Those are two. That is an important distinction.
Yeah, so I don't know. But anyway, they say it's bullshit, and anything. Okay, this is the actual quote I can say now, and I don't think they actually said hookers. I made that part up apparently in my brain. Anything spent in the bar in a bar or restaurant was very reasonable in nature when you look at any business, including video game companies. So that sounds like a pretty rational, even-headed thing to say when you're being accused of
yeah, but then everybody's got different definitions of reasonable too.
Yeah, that's true. Like he's sitting there like, make it rain. That was reasonable.
Yeah, it's like, listen, $300 bottle service, totally acceptable business expense.
Popping the cork and spraying it on the waitress, that was totally acceptable.
But like the lawsuit that came after just the cost of doing business.
They're saying like it's no more than like any other company would do. Yeah, we're not talking about a business credit card here. We're talking about other people's money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think that's why it got controversial because it was crowdfunded. And to be clear, there was no Kickstarter for quote Ant Simulator. There was a Kickstarter for it seemed like a range of projects, and Ant Simulator was sort of one popular thing that came out of that. So they were going to keep going with it. And I think it was some like fairly small amount. It was like $4,000. So it was a small project to start with. It's not like this was ever, some gigantic thing. But still, when you're messing with people's money, or at least when someone's accusing you of messing with people's money, that's pretty bad.
Yeah. I do want to give props to the NeoGAF poster that replied to that story with what is this, a Kickstarter for ants?
Yes.
It's like,
oh,
why
God,
didn't we think of that?
How did we miss that one? Sometimes, as a news writer, you just kick yourself.
Yeah.
Like, God damn it.
Yeah,
too good. All right. The drama of Ant Simulator. Maybe we'll check in next week with further.
Like seriously though, is that also the announcement for the game? Because
we're gonna need to keep following this story, Steve. We're gonna have to offer updates.
Your number one podcast for Hearthstone and Ant Simulator news. We're all over it. All right. So I have a beat the doc. It's more like a beat the Oz. Honestly, I think Ozzy has a better shot at this one.
Right. I'll just do something else.
The problem right now is that I'm trying to get the stupid thing to load. Um, I'll fix it in post. Actually, in
But
the
this is
meantime,
really anybody watching live.
you guys can talk about my other newsy bit that I pulled and didn't go to. Konami is giving a guy a prosthetic arm, which is very nice. I think we can all
Sure.
agree. That's a nice thing.
Metal
It's
Gear
also
Solid,
kind of weird when
Phantom Limb.
they don't make games anymore.
I was gonna say it's also not a video game, so I mean, like they're right on brand.
Yikes.
Konami, we don't make games anymore, but I don't know. We
But
make
but
prosthetics.
it's awesome. Like it's wonderful they're doing it. I think that's really cool. Like jokes aside, I like when there was another thing where Marvel, like there's like a little kid who had to use a prosthetic arm, and he was never like a big fan of it. But then they actually got Robert Downey Jr. to show up with an arm that looked like the Iron Man arm, and he gave it to him. And so like he really started using it. Like they compared prosthetics and tech and stuff like that. It was really cute. So like I kind of dig stuff like that. I don't know. So I thought this was pretty cool.
Let's all give Konami a hand.
Yeah. Oh God.
Oh, jeez.
I'm ashamed to be here.
Yes.
I'm mostly just mad I didn't think of it first.
Yeah, we all are. All right. I think I can get this working now, or at least the first one, and then hopefully the others load as it happens. Today's game is called, and like I mentioned, this is experimental. I have no idea if it's going to work. But today's game is called Sound Effects. I'm going to play, since we talk about Hearthstone so much, I'm going to play a sound effect from a Hearthstone minion. And you just have to name the minion, or if you have a little less experience, Brian.
You do know I play like Hearthstone with the sound off at night.
Describe the minion. Yeah. See,
How do you play Hearthstone with the sound off?
This is pretty even. I mean, I don't know. If you can describe the minion, like if I played a sound and you said, well, it's the 2/1 that draws a card when it dies, I'd be like, okay, yeah, that counts. And of course, I would be talking about Loot Hoarder, everyone. Anyway,
we gotta make this fair to Brian, of course.
I am giving you. I'm just staring daggers through the screen at you.
All right, I've got most of them loaded.
In keeping with the original intent of this segment, yes, but I am still playing under protest.
I'm sort of naming it Beat the Oz because I think he's actually the tougher opponent in this case.
So do I get a point if he misses?
Part of this, unfortunately, is going to involve me taking out my headphones so that I can play the sound so that you can hear them. So hopefully we don't have a lot of echoing, and I'll just plug them back in real quick afterwards. So here's the.
That means we can say whatever we want.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, quiet on set. Hold on. Here's the here's the first entry, and this one is for Ozzy. All right.
Last warning.
Oh, that's
Hear that?
Alder Peacekeeper.
That is Aldor Peacekeeper. That is right. 1 point for the Oz, the great and powerful. So let's move on to the next one. This is for Brian, and Brian, I did try to handicap it slightly and make it a little easier for you. This one is for you.
Oh, okay, yeah. That's Annoyotron. Yeah, that one I know.
That is Annoyotron. We are tied 1-1. Now they're going to get a little harder. Ozzy. Here we go.
Right on time.
That's Clockwork Knight.
Clockwork Knight. Yes, you got it. I thought that would be a little harder. Okay, Brian. Like I said, this one's a little harder, so good luck.
Who be the war chief now?
I know it's a troll, but that's about as far as I can go.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Is it the Senjin Shieldmaster? I don't know.
No. Although
Vol'jin.
Senjin, he has a similar accent, but yes, that is Vol'jin, the priest legendary.
They all sound like that.
They all. So, all right.
Listen, you want to talk about Warcraft lore? I can tell you what all of the different characters sound like.
So
We're saving Warcraft for Beat the Andrew whenever he comes back.
I have one that is significantly harder. It was meant as a tiebreaker, but I'll just see if Ozzy gets it. And then I have another that I think is probably going to be almost impossible. All right. Here you go, Ozzy. This one's for you.
Did I miss it?
Do you have a...
Did I miss it? No, I got
There's
nothing.
there's a reason this one is hard. That one is hard because that is Doomsayer, but you only ever hear the play and the death sounds for Doomsayer because no one ever buffs Doomsayer to make it attack. That is the attack sound for Doomsayer.
That would be kind of impossible.
Yeah, it's a tough one. But yes, he does actually have an attack sound for the rare occasion that someone actually does that. Anyway, so it's 2-1. Brian, you can catch up and tie and redeem yourself.
I could, couldn't I?
You could if you get this one, which is also very difficult for similar reasons.
Me too.
So,
Mega thrusters are go!
Okay,
All
well,
right,
I can
you
tell
have
you.
guess.
I can tell you for sure it's a goblin, but I can't tell you anything more than
It's
that.
actually not a goblin. No,
It's not. Okay.
It's
Oh wait. Never mind. I don't know.
Okay.
Kung Fu Panda. I don't know.
It is. I'm gonna say Voltron, but it's not actually called that. It's V-07-TR-
It's called We Don't Want to Get Sued.
Yeah.
We don't want to get sued, which I figure is similarly difficult to Doomsayer because no one ever hears that thing because no one ever pulls off Voltron.
That's why when you find the YouTube video, it's actually amazing to watch. It's like, who actually pulled that play off? Somebody pulled that play off on me a couple months ago. Somebody actually built a Voltron and tried to use it on me, and they ran right into my Vaporize. Which was so much.
That is rough.
I'm like, I wish I had recorded that.
I lost a game. This was several months ago, but it was just memorable because it was so stupid. Like I lost a game because somebody played Memoron's head, which is the thing that activates Voltron. If people don't know, somebody played Memoron's head, and for some reason in my head, I thought they needed one more mech than they actually had on the board. It's like you need 3 mechs, and I thought you needed 4 or something. And so I just left it alone. Like I had the ability to kill one of the mechs, and I would have been fine. But I didn't because I was like, oh, well, he needs another one, and then if he plays another one next turn, then I'll hit it. So I just didn't, and then he got Voltron, and I think played like one of the Rockbiter weapons on it to make it even more powerful, and I just died. And I was like, well, I deserved that. That was stupid. It was one of those, like, as I was watching it happening, I'm like, yep, that's fine. I had that coming. So the Oz one.
Congratulations.
Not that surprising. It did sort of wait.
I won this incredibly rigged game.
But it's good to know that I can involve sound effects sometimes. Anyway. All right, so that is the show. Ozzy, do you have things to plug? I know that you have Hearthstone features.
We do have Hearthstone features going up.
Actually, some cooking and some that are out as we're speaking.
If you are listening to this right now, there should be a couple more Hearthstone features going up in a couple minutes. We have one going up later today that looks at some of the big losers to come out of this the standard change. And
such a loser.
Yeah, your Gorilla Bot, which we touched on earlier, your Mysterious Challenger, who's losing Avenge. We're sticking like with kind of those themes. And tomorrow we're looking at the big winners, the minions that stand to gain the most out of losing guys like Sludge Belcher and everything else.
Out of things that can't contest them anymore. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly, the ones that can run wild and free. And I know
our tag team feature from yesterday, where we kind of knocked it out in less than an hour just by brainstorming. Like, oh my God, which are the biggest things that are going to go missing after this?
Yeah. So I mean, there were a couple. We put our heads together and we thought about a couple. I know we missed a few, but like I said, ones like Mech Warper that you immediately think of like, oh, it's such a big part of the meta. It's actually, you're not going to miss it at all because everything's gone. All the mech, there is no mech mage
because it doesn't matter anymore. Yeah, but things like Dr. Boom and Sludge Belcher, Zombie Chow,
Mad Scientist.
Those were big. Oh yeah, Mad Scientist. That was like, what's Mage Secrets are dead again? I guess like.
Well, Mage Secrets are dead, but it affects Hunter too. Like Hunter was big on Mad Scientist.
Yep. So, at any rate, Brian, do you have any books you want to plug?
No, but I do want to plug. I do want to plug next week's show, which will be completely free of Hearthstone talk because I think you talked about it enough for the next.
So
3
you
shows.
say, is next week our Street Fighter Spectacular? Is that
Can it be?
the right timing?
I mean, So next week it'll be before the game comes out. Week after is going to be just after.
I feel like we should probably save it for just after so that
Okay.
you'll have been able to play it. If we do it next week, Ozzy might be able to have played it, but he probably won't be able to talk about it. So that wouldn't be any fun. So next week we'll talk about something.
just Ozzy going.
Not to spoil the next week or anything, but Firewatch is coming out, and
Oh, that's true.
You know, not to give too many hints or break any embargoes or anything, but Josh is. I asked Josh, I'm like, blink once if it's good, blink twice if. Let's
he's
assume
a
we might be talking
hostage.
about Firewatch next week.
Yeah, I'm sure we will. Plus, Andrew is going to be digging into it for video coverage too. So, yeah, we got people all over that Firewatch.
Awesome.
Anyway, so that is the show. We're going to get out of here and do actual work. So,
I'm getting ready for Smash Brothers later today because
yeah, that's true.
Leonetta and Corin arrived this afternoon.
I thought that was tomorrow.
It's tomorrow in the UK. It is today in the US.
All right. Well, we're going to get out of here.
We get the better end of the deal.
So Ozzy can, for once. So Ozzy can get busy on Smash Brothers. Check out our Hearthstone features if you are interested in all this Hearthstone chat. You might be interested in those. So for Ozzy Mejia, I'm Steve Watts.
I'm Kung Fu Panda.
Yeah. What? Okay. Yeah. Sure. And we will see you on Chatty.